My name is Carty and I'm the UNESCO Chair Project Manager in Munster Technological University, and our chair works with UNESCO in supporting them to implement their policy objectives globally. So we work with a lot of different UN agencies and different research centres, state parties, countries, sporting bodies, disability inclusion bodies and various bodies across the world. So our work is quite varied, from research and academic work like that across into the policy and advocacy areas. So it's quite an interesting and diverse agenda that we work on, and we have a small team of people who have a global responsibility, so it's quite a challenging agenda in the UNESCO chair. International Women's Day to me means that number one, it's needed, which is a pity that we still need at this day and age an International Women's Day to draw attention to the fact that we don't have gender equality, and this is obviously relevant across the world. So UN observance days are usually to address a kind of a key agenda that needs attention, and I think International Women's Day is one of the most popular and significant days of observance in the UN calendar. So it really means that there's a need to draw attention from a public perspective on gender equality, and also to energize political will around the gender equality agenda, and to celebrate as well and reinforce achievements of women, I guess, around International Women's Day. But most of all, it means that we're very much not there yet in terms of gender equality, and we have a lot to do to get there. I think there's an aspiration that by 2030 and this end point of the Sustainable Development Goals that we'll have done a lot to achieve gender equality, but we have still quite a lot to do. And the very fact that there is International Women's Day means that we need more action and we need to deliver more results in terms of gender equality. Building on the previous question around International Women's Day, I've been very inspired by the work of Eleanor Roosevelt around the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the work that she did in 1948, bringing that Universal Declaration of Human Rights forward. And I still think we're here now in 2021. We very much have not achieved that universal human rights, because we're still having days like International Women's Day. But that human rights agenda that was put forward and championed by Eleanor Roosevelt in 1948 is still a very live agenda and has been given renewed momentum since 2015 and the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals that are underpinned by human rights. And through the work that we do in the UNESCO chair, we've seen lots of new momentum around gender equality and around a variety of human rights issues that were championed back then by Eleanor Roosevelt. And I think beyond, a major public figure like Eleanor Roosevelt, on International Women's Day, I think it's very important to acknowledge the work and the impact, of the work and the impact that mothers, especially of children with disabilities and children who are marginalized and excluded for whatever reason around the world, really needs to be recognized. In the case of many children with disabilities, the advocacy done by parents and specifically by mothers is remarkable in terms of championing the human rights of their children. And I think that it's important to recognize that on a day such as the International Women's Day. I think, balancing work and home life is always a challenge, especially when you have a job that, for me, not in this last year, remarkably, but normally involved a lot of travel over the last few years. When you have small children and you're living on the west coast of Ireland, that is an additional challenge. So for many years, many of the last number of years, I've been traveling, across 5 continents in some years, and that presents a challenge. The work agenda is also really broad and really demanding, very diverse. It's in the area of sport and physical activity and physical education. And when you describe those things to many people, they kind of are the same thing, they're kind of sport and fun and games type thing. But actually, in terms of their global organization, they're very different, and there are very different structures and organizations driving policy actions across each of those areas. So it involves you working then in different fields. So when it comes to physical activity, you're more working with the health sector. When it comes to physical education, you're more working with education colleagues, and sport is very much a big sector in and of its own right. So our UNESCO chair spans diverse range of areas, and then the nature of the work that we do in each of those areas is also different from developing research and research projects, implementing programs, and engaging in advocacy work. So it just means we have a very, very broad agenda that does bring that challenge in terms of work demands along with it. But you know what, we've been making good progress. So we're happy, with the fact that we are addressing the challenges that come with the job, I suppose, and that we are delivering positive results, because we have really made an impact in terms of getting the UNESCO Chair MTU name known out there around the world. And we're very much now a respected seat at the table in many international fora, and that's a positive thing for MTU. We have a project running at the moment. It's called Trust, the Rights Understanding in Sports Toolkit. And our strapline for that is Trust Sport as it should be. So it should be clean, it should be fair, it should be inclusive, it should be safe, etc. Each of those things relates to human rights. And so we're looking very much at how sport can help deliver on human rights. Sport is in of itself a human right, and access to sport and physical activity and physical education, but it's also a really powerful vehicle to deliver on human rights, on other human rights, and to teach about human rights through sport. So it's a really exciting project, and we're working with key partners in Ireland and in Europe, and also indeed broader and wider afield internationally, to deliver an online training program, advocacy materials around sport and human rights. And we're hoping that at the next World Conference of Sports Ministers, which comes up in Kenya online in June of 2021, that we'll be ready to launch many of the Trust resources, and that stakeholders across the globe will take them up. We've had interest from the Pacific region, from Africa, from the Caribbean region, and all around the world, really, in terms of the Trust resources. And I'm really lucky in the UNESCO chair that my colleagues are a fantastic group. We have a very small team in the UNESCO chair, but a very committed and dedicated team who, in fairness to them, work extremely hard and produce really good, high quality results and resources. So we're really excited about this Trust resource and how it's been kind of the interest it has stimulated from the stakeholders that we work with across the world. In keeping with International Women's Day, gender equality is a core part of what we will be advancing through the Trust Rights Understanding in Sport Toolkit. And we have running during this month of Enterprise in MTU a photo and video competition for photos that capture that sport as a human right, or how sport can deliver human rights. And so we encourage people to have a look at and enter that competition, and the details are available on our website. So that's one example of one of the projects that we're delivering on, and one that we are particularly excited about this year.